What do 40,000 immigrants, a $700 billion fake industry, and a blocked ambulance have in common? They're all symptoms of a global power struggle spinning out of control. In 2025, the U.S.-China relationship has hit a boiling point. Tariffs are up. Visas are down. Trust is non-existent. And in the middle of it all, real people are paying the price. Chinese students are being deported. Factories are closing. Online fraud is booming. And inside mainland China, daily life is growing more surreal by the hour. From bizarre traffic laws that leave ambulances stuck in place, to homeowners threatening suicide in half-built apartments, this isn't just political tension. It's a social and economic unraveling. And Taiwan? It's watching, and showing the world how things could be different. This is not just a trade war. It's a war on stability, truth, and the futures of millions. Welcome to Chaos Rising, the human cost of a global superpower showdown. While politicians negotiate trade deals and global headlines focus on tariffs and strategy, a quieter crisis is unfolding, one that affects families, students, and workers whose only mistake was being caught in the middle. As of April 2025, nearly 40,000 Chinese immigrants in the United States are facing the very real threat of deportation. Many of them have lived legally in the U.S. for years, working, studying, raising children, paying taxes. But now, due to new diplomatic restrictions, renewal applications are stalling. Background checks have intensified. And in some cases, visas are being revoked altogether. In cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle, immigrant families are suddenly packing bags, selling homes, or consulting attorneys on what little hope remains. Some have been detained. Others are leaving voluntarily, fearing the worst. But it's not just long-term residents. Hundreds of Chinese students, studying in American universities, are being affected too. In just 3 months, over 700 students have reported having their student visas abruptly denied, delayed, or revoked, with no prior notice. Some were mid-semester, facing expulsion and loss of credit. Others were ready to begin graduate programs and now find their dreams on hold. Worse still, many of these students were not involved in politics. They weren't activists. They were artists, scientists, engineers. People who believed that education was still a bridge between nations, even in uncertain times. U.S. universities are scrambling. Several institutions have issued public letters condemning the crackdown, while also admitting they're helpless to reverse it. Homeland Security officials cite national security concerns, but provide little detail. For the affected students and families, this isn't a geopolitical chess move. It's heartbreak. It's uncertainty. And it's fear. One mother, whose son was pulled off a return flight to Boston at LAX, told reporters, he had a backpack full of books and nothing else. They treated him like a criminal. Others, too afraid to speak publicly, are turning to private immigration lawyers or crowdfunding campaigns to try and stay. What began as a diplomatic disagreement has become something far more personal. A war without weapons. A battle not fought with tanks or tariffs, but with paperwork, silence, and closed doors. And in this battle, it's not nations losing. It's individuals. It started with percentages. 10% on steel. 25% on semiconductors. Then more. Then more. What was once a strategic move to protect national interests has evolved into a full-blown economic war. And like all wars, it leaves casualties. Not in uniform, but in coveralls, backpacks, and business suits. Since early 2024, both the US and China have engaged in tit-for-tat tariffs, raising import duties on everything from agricultural equipment to smartphone chips. As of April 2025, the average US tariff on Chinese goods has reached 145%. China, in turn, has responded with near-total bans on key American exports, including liquefied natural gas, soybeans, and high-end electronics. The result? Chaos in the global supply chain, and pain on the ground. In the U.S., farmers in Iowa, Nebraska, and Ohio are watching entire seasons of produce rot, as exports to China vanish overnight. Storage silos are full, but orders are empty. Many small farms are declaring bankruptcy. One soybean farmer told Bloomberg, "I didn't vote for war. I voted for stability. Now I'm not sure I'll survive the year." In Texas and Louisiana, energy companies specializing in LNG exports are laying off workers. Multi-billion-dollar facilities built for long-term Chinese demand now sit idle, waiting for contracts that may never come. And in China, the pain is just as visible, if not more so. Mid-sized factories in provinces like Guangdong and Zhejiang are closing in waves. These are the manufacturers that produced everything from sneakers to circuit boards, products that once fueled the engine of China's export economy. Without U.S. demand, some plants have cut shifts by 70%. Workers are being laid off with no notice. Some are owed months of back pay. Others are told to wait until conditions improve. But conditions are not improving. Across Chinese cities, street vendors are reappearing, not because of a boom, but because of necessity. White-collar workers are turning to gig jobs. Engineers are becoming couriers. Middle-class dreams are shrinking into daily survival. And for consumers on both sides, inflation is hitting hard. In the U.S., grocery prices are up 18% year-on-year. Electronics are more expensive. Furniture takes longer to ship, and costs more when it arrives. Many businesses have no choice but to pass the cost to consumers. In China, the effects are subtler, but present. Imported American goods have disappeared from shelves. Families looking for U.S. brand infant formula, supplements, or medical tech are being forced to settle for local alternatives, sometimes at a risk. Economists call this a deadweight loss, value destroyed, not transferred. No one wins. Everyone loses a little. Or a lot. And yet, the tariffs keep coming. Why? Because in the short term, tariffs look strong. They project nationalism, retaliation, leverage. But in the long term, they rot the system from within. The real human cost of the tariff war isn't in GDP charts or export volumes. It's in eviction notices. It's in loan defaults. It's in families rationing groceries while politicians argue about principle. It's in workers with 20 years of experience being told their job no longer exists, because a policy changed halfway around the world. This isn't just a trade war. It's a supply chain shutdown. A labor crisis. A cost of living crisis. And it's happening in two of the world's largest economies, simultaneously. And unlike past trade disputes, this one has no clear off-ramp. No settlement. No face-saving handshake on the horizon. Because this time, it's not about trade. It's about control. And everyone is paying the price. For decades, China has projected an image of strength, unity, and unshakable leadership. But now, cracks are showing. Inside the country, criticism toward President Xi Jinping is no longer just whispered in private. It's surfacing online, coded, sarcastic, but unmistakable. And it's coming from every direction: entrepreneurs, workers, even some retired party members. Xi's economic strategy, once hailed for lifting millions out of poverty, is now being blamed for widespread disillusionment. Growth has slowed. Youth unemployment hit 21% before the government stopped publishing the number altogether. The private sector is shrinking. And trust in top-down control is eroding fast. But perhaps the most bizarre symptom of this unraveling? A digital empire built on fraud. In 2024, analysts estimated that China's so-called live-stream economy had grown into a $700 billion beast. On paper, it was a miracle, millions of people buying, selling, and growing rich through platforms like Douyin and Taobao live. But under the surface, the entire system is rotten. Much of the traffic is fake, generated by click farms, bots, and automated scripts. Influencers show off products that don't exist. Views are bought. Sales figures are inflated. And behind the ring lights and filters, are warehouses filled with counterfeit goods, knockoff electronics, and unregulated supplements. The CCP knows. But with real manufacturing on the decline, the party has quietly allowed this illusion to grow. It creates the appearance of prosperity. Jobs. Innovation. Consumption. But for the average citizen, it creates only confusion and danger. Hundreds of consumers have reported being scammed, defective products, non-existent shipments, and even fake medical devices. Attempts to report these issues often end in silence, or worse, accusations of spreading false rumors. Meanwhile, major live stream stars live in luxury villas, untaxed and largely untouched by regulation, as long as they stay apolitical. Critics have begun calling this the Silicon Mirage, a digital economy that looks futuristic on the outside but is empty at its core. And as this ecosystem expands, so does public skepticism. WeChat and Weibo are flooded with satire and parody, some using ancient poems to criticize Xi's imperial leadership, others posting videos of collapsing buildings and tagging them new infrastructure. Censorship, as always, follows. But for every post taken down, 2 more appear. The people aren't shouting yet, but they are laughing. And in an authoritarian state, ridicule is often the first sign of revolution. What we're seeing in China today isn't just economic dysfunction. It's loss of faith. And for a government that relies on control, that may be the most dangerous currency to lose. While China's official narrative speaks of stability and progress, the everyday reality for millions is far more chaotic, and far more tragic. In cities across the mainland, viral videos show ambulances stuck in traffic, unable to pass, not because of gridlock, but because other drivers simply refuse to yield. There's no law requiring them to. And no cultural habit encouraging it. In one now infamous clip, a dying patient inside an ambulance passed away while cars sat still, unmoved, emotionally and physically. Citizens are calling it the cold lanes of China, a reflection of a society where compliance beats compassion, and where fear of being penalized for moving improperly outweighs saving a life. But that's just one layer of absurdity. Across dozens of provinces, hundreds of thousands of Chinese homeowners are living a nightmare, unfinished apartment blocks. Concrete skeletons of buildings, left half-built by bankrupt developers, still carry monthly mortgage payments. People who bought pre-construction units in good faith are now forced to pay for homes they cannot live in, with no legal recourse. Some sleep in the shell of their future apartments, without electricity, water, or safety. Others, too desperate to wait, are threatening suicide or staging sit-ins at bank branches and local government offices. In one province, a group of homeowners literally built tents in the parking lot of their stalled building project, hanging a banner that read, "We already paid. You stole our lives." But the state response? Silence. Or worse, accusations of undermining social harmony. And it's not just housing. Reports have surfaced of public hospitals requiring bribes for basic treatment. Parents unable to afford school fees despite the supposed free education promise. And elders queuing in the cold for pension payouts that arrive late, or don't arrive at all. To outsiders, these stories seem shocking. But to many in China, they've become the new normal. A normal where people lock their doors, not out of fear of crime, but out of fear of what the system won't protect them from. A normal where the official news says the economy is recovering, while families pawn wedding rings to buy rice. And perhaps most tragically, a normal where no one expects fairness anymore. Only survival. In such a system, absurdity becomes logic. Indifference becomes policy. And desperation becomes invisible, until it's too late to hide. Just across the Taiwan Strait, less than 200 kilometers away, a completely different picture unfolds. In April 2025, a viral video from Taiwan captured something simple, yet extraordinary. An ambulance siren pierces through city traffic. Within seconds, the entire road begins to shift. Cars merge. Scooters pull to the curb. Pedestrians step back. No yelling. No chaos. Just movement, fluid, automatic, instinctive. Within 22 seconds, the ambulance clears a 5-lane intersection. The patient inside survives. It's not the technology that stands out. It's the culture. In Taiwan, yielding to ambulances isn't just a rule, it's a value. It reflects a shared social contract, that human life matters more than personal convenience. And this doesn't happen by accident. Taiwan has spent years investing not only in infrastructure, but in civic trust. From mandatory emergency training in schools to televised public service campaigns, the society has internalized a simple idea: urgency isn't chaos, it's responsibility. This attitude shows up everywhere. In subway stations where strangers jump in to perform CPR. In neighborhoods where citizens voluntarily report fire hazards. In city halls where officials live stream responses during typhoons, not to perform, but to reassure. Taiwan doesn't pretend to be perfect. It has political tensions, economic concerns, and regional threats. But in its everyday systems, in how it treats its people, it shows something rare in today's geopolitical climate: mutual respect. Compare that to the mainland, where ambulances are stuck behind indifferent drivers, and emergencies are often met with apathy, or fear of liability. Where silence is safer than stepping forward. It's in these small moments, on a street corner, at a hospital gate, that the difference between systems becomes clear. Not through ideology, but through lived experience. In Taiwan, an ambulance is more than a vehicle. It's a test. Of a society's empathy. Of its coordination. Of its willingness to protect its weakest, fastest. And this time, Taiwan passed. For mainland viewers watching the viral clip, many reacted with shock. Why doesn't this happen here? One comment asked. Because we were never taught how to care, another answered. It's a sobering truth. And a powerful reminder, that national strength isn't just measured by GDP or missiles. Sometimes, it's measured by how fast a street clears for an ambulance, and whether a stranger lives to see another sunrise. What began as a trade dispute, has become something far more human. It's about borders. Visas. Families torn apart. Students left in limbo. Entire industries built on illusion. And ordinary people, stuck between headlines and history. China is facing internal collapse, not in the way some viral videos shout, but in the quiet ways that matter most. Trust is eroding. Compassion is collapsing. Systems are malfunctioning. Meanwhile, the US stands at a crossroads, tough on policy, but increasingly blind to its human toll. And Taiwan, small but steady, quietly reminds us that dignity, urgency, and cooperation are not about size. They're about choice. In this new global era, it's not just about who holds power. It's about how that power is used. Not who shouts loudest, but who listens longest. This isn't just a US-China story anymore. It's a question for all of us: when everything breaks down, what will we still believe in? And more importantly, who will we still protect? If you found this eye-opening, hit like to support truth-based reporting.